Alright, so now we're going to connect our database. So I'm logged into MongoDB Atlas. If I hit connect to your application, it gives me this string right here. So what I want to do is copy this and go back to my application here, and I'm going to create a folder here called config. Alright, now in this config, I'm going to create a file called default.json. Okay, now remember that dependency we installed called config? Basically, we can create global values that we can use throughout our application. And we can have this default JSON file that will have just that, all the default values. And we want to create one for our MongoDB string, or what's called a Mongo URI. All right, so in this default JSON, we want to put in our curly braces because this is JSON format, and we want to put double quotes, and we're going to call this Mongo URI, and we're going to set that to that string. Okay, yours will be different, and then you just need to put your password here, which mine is the same as my username, and that's it. Now if I save that, we can use this value throughout our application, and we want to use this to connect. Now we could put our connection logic right in our server.js, but I don't want to clutter this file up. So inside config, I'm going to create another file called db.js. And this is where I want to do my MongoDB connection. All right, so in here, let's bring in Mongoose, because that's what we're actually using to connect. And then we want to be able to grab that string that we just put inside the default JSON. So we need to also bring in the config package. So we want to say require config. And then to get that value, you know, we have that this right here, this Mongo UI. To get that, I'm actually going to put that in a variable called db. And we can just do config.get, and we can get any of the values in that JSON file. So we want to put quotes in here, and we want to do Mongo URI. Okay, and that should get us that value. Now, to connect to MongoDB, we can use mongoose.connect and pass in that DB value, and this will give us back a promise. Okay, so we could use the .then .catch syntax, but throughout this course we're going to be using async await because that seems to be the new standard. It's much cleaner, and it makes your code look like it's synchronous even though it's asynchronous. So we'll be using async await. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an arrow function here called connect DB, because we need something to call within our server.js. So we're going to create this function, and it's going to be an asynchronous arrow function. So we want to say async and put our parentheses and then our arrow. All right, now in here we want to run, like I just showed you, mongoose.connect, but we want to put it inside of a try catch block. And the reason for that is if there's some kind of error, like if we can't connect, then we need a way to basically have it fail and then show whatever the error message, whatever it is we're going to do. So whenever we use async await, or in most cases when we use async await, we're going to wrap it inside of a try catch block. Okay, so inside the try, since mongoose.connect returns a promise, we want to put await right before it. Okay, so we want to await for that. And then in here we'll pass in the DB, and there are some parameters that we need to pass in, but I'm just going to leave it as is just for now. And then once that happens, we're just going to do a console.log, and we're going to pass in let's say MongoDB connected, just so we know that the database is actually connected. Now, if something goes wrong, then let's do a console error. And we'll just pass in that error value, which has a message property on it. And then we want to just escape from the process with failure. We basically want the application to fail. We can do that with process.exit, and you want to pass in a 1. All right, and I'll just put a comment here just in case that's a little confusing. So we want to exit process with failure. All right, and then the last thing we need to do is just export this. So we want to do module.export the connect connectDB method or function. And then we'll save that. And if we go into server.js, we should be able to just bring this in. So right here, let's do const connect db, and we want to require, and let's require // we want to go into config, and then that's in the db file. Okay, and then we simply just need to call that. So right under where we initialized express, let's connect database, and we'll do that by just calling connectDB. All right, so let's save that and let's try to run it. So we'll do npm run server. Okay, now you can see down here we're getting MongoDB connected, so that's fine, we're connected. And notice this deprecation warning. So current URL string parser is deprecated, will be removed. To use the new parser, pass option use new URL parser true. So we have to pass this option in our connect right here. So right after this DB, we're going to pass in an object, so comma and then an object, and let's say use new URL parser, and we want to set that to true. All right, so if I save that, now you can see that warning is gone and we're now connected to our database. All right, so in the next video, I want to just create the files for our API routes. We're going to have routes that pertain to users, so registering a user, stuff like that, routes that pertain to authentication, profiles, posts. So I want to at least create those files and just create a test endpoint just to get started. And then in the next section, we're going to move on and start to create our user model, start to create authentication with JSON Web Tokens, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.